Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. Here's your host, Brien Hanley.
Hey, everybody, what's going on? This is your man, Big B, Brien Hanley, along with Tim Fitzgerald. Welcome back to the Big 12 Insiders. I'm trying to figure out some stuff down here in old Frisco, Texas. It is a blizzard. Now, look,
is it?
I grew up. Oh, yeah, Fitz. I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky. I lived in Kansas City, Manhattan for the better part of 17 years. I have seen a lot of snow in my lifetime. I have never seen snowflakes as big as what I am looking at outside my house right now. It is unbelievable. But still, we're here. My dog doesn't know how to navigate through snow. She's only seen it one time. She's not happy about it. Didn't want to go outside to the bathroom. I'm like, no, we're going to go. But it is what it is, people. I appreciate all you all being in here, man. Look, we got a topic today that I think is worth bringing up. Power Four conferences are digging in and really trying to assert their power and their dominance over everything within the college landscape. It's now that the conferences are trying to take control over championships, how things are really done. And what we've talked about and what we've noticed before and even brought up several times is they're basically trying to eliminate the NCAA. That's what they are trying to do. We're going to break all of that down, kind of give you our thoughts on that. But before we do, remember, everybody, like, follow, subscribe, continue to hit the comment section, and always hit the notification bell so you know exactly when the Big 12 Insiders content comes out. So without further ado, let's get into this. So, Fitz, Power Four conferences are trying to take advantage of their power right now.
Right.
Things are rolling. Look, we can talk about the college football playoff all we want, all the realignment stuff. It seems that for now that they have decided, you know what, let's bond together and let's try to take control of this thing. Something that on the football aspect of it, they're refusing to do because, the SEC absolutely doesn't want to do that. And the Big Ten, to an extent, they don't want to do that. But for all the other sports, they do want to do that. First off, let me get your thoughts on that aspect of it, Fitz.
Well, I'm not comfortable with a Power Four only play. I think it should be FBS play. I don't want to leave out the Sun Belt, Mountain West, and I don't think that the line of differentiation between the two levels is that great. It is in funding, but that's because of TV. So, right. I mean, we've seen it happen in the Big 12. You elevate someone to this level and performance goes up, competition improves, and then they get the money to kind of keep up. So I don't want to draw the line there, but I think once you draw the line yourself, it's saying, hey, we want to play FBS or FCS because they're constructed much differently. I think you have separated the two. And I think that Division I barrier, that for clarification for people to understand, Division I includes all of the basketball programs without football, all the Green Bay, Wisconsin, all that stuff. They're Division I. And if you separate Division I off, I think you've got something here.
Right.
Because let's be honest, the NCAA isn't doing crap. They're just not right now. They're worried about all the wrong stuff. They're talking about weirdness and ignoring big issues. And I think the power schools in particular want to have a greater say in what they're doing. Because right now, according to the way the NCAA is constructed, Division III and Division II schools get to vote on Division I matters. That doesn't make sense to me. I know what they're addressing. And I look at this as the opening salvo of a negotiation.
Right.
And it's you take an outlandish stance at, that seems that way. But because of that, you drag people more in the direction you want them to and bring them maybe closer to the compromise you're actually seeking. I don't think the Power Four really wants to run things. That's a nightmare. But I do think they want great NCAA reforms, or they want Division I broken off into its own entity within the NCAA, or they might just be actually pushing at the end of the day for our own thing. I don't think they really want to get into all those levels of crap the NCAA has to swim through.
Here's what I would say, and I'll just look at this from the basketball aspect of it. In men's basketball in particular, if they were to do that and they were to break off into its own separate entity, which basically means that March Madness, you're not going to have anybody but Power 4 teams in this tournament, the viewership would literally go in the toilet.
Yep.
It would overnight, it would go in the toilet, because the only I shouldn't say the only reason, but one of the major reasons that people watch the first weekend of the NCAA tournament is to see all the upsets. That's why people tune in. That's why they bet on it, Fitz. That's why they go to Las Vegas to go watch. That's why they go to, they have these NCAA parties. They go to, that's why people are watching. Granted, they want their team to win, but they are there for the upsets. And if you just eliminate that altogether, the viewership will literally go in the toilet. Now, the pushback would be, what was it, the 2023 NCAA final? What was it, UConn versus San Diego State? Not that many people watched as what you would normally say watched. I get that part of it. I understand. Look, San Diego State doesn't have a huge fan base, not from a Power 4 conference. Not as many people wanted to watch. But in the flip side of that, I don't think it was all just a San Diego State problem. See, I think it was more of a UConn problem as well. As while we recognize UConn being one of the best teams over the last 25 years, UConn's brand as a nationwide thing is not as what anybody else would see. I know if you watch college basketball, you're going to say, come on, Big B, what are you talking about? Just think about it. It's the truth. Yes, they are one of the best college basketball teams over the last 25 years. There is no denying that. But their brand in itself clearly wasn't big enough to hold that game. Replace them with a Kansas. Replace them with a Duke. Replace them with a Kentucky or a North Carolina. Keep San Diego State there. The viewership of that thing goes way, way up, Fitz. So that's why I don't think it's a good idea, because you're going to kill the NCAA tournament. Now, look, you mentioned it. The NCAA does a horrible job at running anything, and they're doing a terrible job now. But the one thing about this, the NCAA would fight this tooth and nail. They would spend every last dollar that it had in litigation fighting this, because they would know, well, literally we'll be finished if this were to happen. Like we would have no purpose whatsoever. We would have no power. We couldn't hold. I mean, right now they basically can't stop anything anyway, but they wouldn't be able to legislate in. I mean, it would literally go under, not just bankrupt. It would just go under, and as much as we don't like the NCAA, Fitz, and I don't even think it's we dislike them. We just want them to do things right, things that make sense. And they just haven't for, I don't know, the better part of 60 years. But we just want them to do it right. And we also don't want them to go away. We just want them to change. It's kind of like the bad football coach that's been at your school or been on your team forever. It's, yeah, I like you, but you got to change. I don't mind just staying, but you have to change. And if you do change, you can coach here forever. But you know what? If you're not going to change and we're going to continue to get these mediocre results, then you got to go. Same with the NCAA. We don't want you to leave, although you've done things bad for a long time. But if you change, be in charge. And maybe, and the Power 4, I think, are trying to take all that away, Fitz, and just say, no, you had your chance. We gave you your opportunity. You don't do it right. Not only that, we're winning in court. So if we're winning in court, we feel like we can continue to win in court and just push you out. But I agree with you. That would be horrible, because now you're asking the Power 4, okay, who's going to be in charge? Because somebody has to be in charge. Well, who's that going to be?
Right.
They're never going to come to an agreement on who that should be.
Right. I agree with everything you said. A couple points here. First of all, that great NCAA championship you cite wouldn't happen. Neither
Absolutely.
team is Power 4.
That's right.
Look, until
the tournament wouldn't be as big, Fitz.
No, it would be. I don't even know if you It would be 32 teams at least, but you'd lose a round. We don't want that.
No.
We want more rounds of football or more games of football and the same amount of games of basketball. I don't know how. Quit expanding it. You found the sweet spot. In fact, I think it should be 64 and get rid of Dayton, but not literally. Dayton, I apologize. You can stay. I just don't think the first 4 should. Well, I don't know. I've never met anyone from Dayton. But also, negotiations about leverage. And let's not forget this very important detail. The NCAA is only actually the membership. The membership puts it into an existence.
Correct.
So at the end of the day, the Power 4 schools could all get together and say, we're leaving.
Yep.
What are you going to do? We're just going to leave and do our own thing. Either you let us run our own show or we're out. That'll kill that tournament. That'll kill everything the NCAA wants. And you know what? The NCAA would still exist. The NAIA has a governing body.
Correct.
So the NCAA would just become Division II and lower. I got no problem with that. Or if 1AA, geez, I keep doing that. FCS wants to go with them. It's always 1AA to me. FCS wants to go with them. Either way, I'm fine with that. Look, the Power 4 is sick of schools with no skin in their game deciding the rules of their game. And they're going to change that, whether that means the NCAA reforms itself or they destroy the NCAA. And I think the Power 4 has all the power here.
Well, the one thing about it is I don't even know, Fitz, if they could exist because the NCAAs, all their money comes from March Madness. That's where they fund everything. It's from March Madness. People think they got this big hand in college football. No, they don't.
No.
Their money comes from March Madness. If that goes away, everything else, they're not going to be able to survive as an entity without that.
Not in the current way.
You could say FCS, not enough people pay attention to that. You know, in Division 2 and 3, that not enough people are going to pay attention to that. It just would fall completely apart, which it just would. Not enough money. I mean, you can't survive without what March Madness. Think about when COVID was around, how much money they said, yeah, we can survive 1 year without the tournament. That's why, because I don't think really everybody thought they should put the tournament on the next year, but they had to because the NCAA literally would have went bankrupt and it filters down. NCAA, Division II, Division III, all of it would have just all went away because there would have been no money left. So, and it's not, and we're not talking about $100 here. We're talking billions of dollars. So I'm just not sure it would be able to survive. But the Power 4 does have the power right now. And I think that's a scary, scary thought because as I mentioned before, who's going to be in charge? Yeah. I mean, we'll talk about it at a later time about commissioners. Do we need one for college football and basketball separately from each other and from the NCAA altogether? That's a different conversation for a different time. But having said all of that, who's going to run this? Because it has to be one, but it can't be, well, the conferences all together are going to run it. No, that's not going to work. It's going to have to be one person. Well, who are you going to hire to do that? I know people have talked about, well, you could always hire Nick Saban. Nick Saban's a football guy, and this wouldn't just affect football, you know? So who's going to be in charge of something like this that's going to have everybody's interest at an equal playing field? Because that's where the problem is. It comes in right now, Fitz. Everybody they don't want to be equal. We just want to be separate from the NCAA. We will still want to have our power over top of you. We just don't want the NCAA to be able to stick their nose into our particular business. And that's where the problem comes in. And we've talked about it several times. And look, if the SEC wants to break away and the Big Ten want to break away with it, okay, that's fine. But the other conferences are going to have to push back. And look, if we're talking about basketball alone, the Big East is a big player in college basketball. I know people don't realize that or want to realize that. The Big East has a say in this when it comes to basketball. They have a loud voice. Heck, they've had the last two national champions. And they would be a part of this too. I'm just not sure that all of this plays out the way that maybe the Power Four, and if we're talking basketball, Power Five thinks it should fit. I think it'd be trouble.
I agree. I mean, again, we seem to be enjoying the upheaval in college sports. I mean, they're feeding it now. Like, hey, we're having a storm. Let's turn on the sprinklers. It's a crazy situation we see them in. But let me back up. If Division I or the FBS or the power conferences, including the basketball ones you just mentioned, do break off, the NCAA, as we know, it's done. They might still exist, but their staff will be a guy named Fat Tony from New Jersey and his friends. I mean, there's basically, I go back to one of my favorite sports quotes of all time. I grew up in Salina, Kansas, and in Salina, Kansas, I grew up around Marymount College basketball. Now, probably most people don't know about Marymount College, but it was the Duke, the North Carolina of NCAA basketball. In fact, they beat the Russians. That's how good that team was. And they were cheating. They were just bringing in everyone. I don't know if half the team could read or write. But Ken Cochran, a Hall of Fame coach, said this: the NAIA has two rules: don't cheat, and if you do, turn yourself in. And that's basically, it was a joke because they were cheating. But it's kind of what the NCAA had become, just less. It's what we want. Get rid of the 10,000 rules, the huge book, and boil it down to what we really need to operate. And then maybe set up, if there's unique rules for track and field or volleyball, let them individually enforce their rules and figure out how to make it work. But this giant structure that's become the NCAA, let's be honest here. Whenever you have a giant corporate structure, whether it's for profit or a nonprofit like the NCAA, one of the things it does, and we see this with the government, is it feeds itself. It creates work to justify its existence.
Right.
And then it's created so much work, so much crap on its plate that it can't manage the details that need to be managed, like rule enforcement and actually trying to fix problems. They're too wrapped up in everything else. And I think the push here is for gigantic reform of the NCAA, starting with, we want more say over our lives. It's a very American thought. And that's exactly what the Division I, notably the power conference in football and basketball, want. More
correct.
popular.
You know, and I love that analogy, creating work. It's kind of like if you've ever been audited, not just for taxes, but any type of audit for any business, you usually get fined enough to pay for the existence of whoever comes out and does the audit. That's usually how that always works. Whether you've done something wrong or not, they'll find something to pay for the people that had to go out there. And that's kind of what the NCAA is. Look, my thing with the NCAA and this crazy rule book that they have is, you know, it's like you said, 10, 20, 50,000 page rule book. They can whittle this thing down pretty much to about 10 pages total and make it all make sense. And also, like you mentioned, Fitz, put it in individual categories. Like football doesn't have to be regulated the same as basketball, the same as gymnastics, the same as volleyball or track and field. It can be different. And I think if you looked at those things differently, it would be better. For instance, this is going to piss off a lot of people, but I don't care. I've had the same thoughts about this forever. Title IX. Title IX has to be in place. I 100% believe that it is something that we need as a whole. But football should not be included in that at all. And the reason being is because you have to have a certain number of scholarships to be able to have a competitive college football team. That's just the way it works. By the way, it also funds all the other sports. So that's why I believe Title IX is so important. But when you include football, it's like, well, hold on a second. And I know the argument is, well, you don't need that many scholarships on a football team. Yeah, you do. Yes, you actually do. To have a competitive football team, you do need that same number of scholarships. I mean, they didn't just come up with an arbitrary number. That's not how this thing works. Well, in pro football, they only got 53. Pro football is paying guys millions of dollars. They have salary caps, something totally different than college football. I go, it's not the same, and you can't compare the two because they're not run the same. Now we're kind of getting there of being run the same, but it is not the same. And I think that's the way we have to look at this. Put things in separate categories and govern them based on what's best for that in particular sport. Govern things the best way on women's basketball. Have a set of rules. Have a set of rules for men's basketball. Have a set of rules for gymnastics, volleyball, track and field, cross country, whatever it happens to be. Have a set of rules. They don't all have to fit in this box, and everybody has to fit in it because things aren't the same in each individual sport. And I think if that's part of the NCAA's problem, they want everybody to fit in here. Well, no, have stuff that's separate and make it make sense. I know it's something that I usually always say on my little TikTok channel is make it make sense. Well, yeah, man, just make it make sense. It doesn't have to be this hard. And I think the Power Four conferences are like, you guys have made this thing hard for 60 years. We're done with that. Not that we can do it any better, but we just want to be able to make it make sense for us because you guys clearly won't.
Damn, that was good. A couple thoughts. I'm with you on Title IX. I'm a big supporter of Title IX.
Yeah.
My little family background. My mom was an athlete. She was a gym teacher, and she pushed hard for space for women in athletics. Which you want to piss people off. This will piss people off. We're seeing that eroded, and we're seeing that eroded right now. In a way that doesn't line up with your thoughts on Title IX and football. If the NCAA is going to allow a genetic male to play female sports, then how come football is a male sport when already any genetics can play that sport? Women could play that sport. They are not banned from it.
Nope.
They are allowed on the rosters. Those are athletic opportunities that don't pick based on gender, based on sex, based on genetics. So why does that count as only for a male scholarship? Now, I'm recognizing that women aren't physically equipped to play football. That's kind of the point. It's kind of the point. They're two different things, and I'm all for women having opportunities. But technically, by the way the NCAA is enforcing its own rules, they have opportunities to play football. They're just not taking it, and that's not the fault of the men.
No, it's not at all. And I'm 100% with you.
I'll get some feedback.
Well, it's not just that. Are you telling me that a college football coach with his job on the line, if there was a woman that could help him win, you don't think that they would have him on the football team? Absolutely they would. They don't care. They literally don't care. If somebody could help them win games, that's the only thing that they care about. That's the only thing that they care about. Wouldn't care if it was a field mouse. If a field mouse had good quarterback or pocket presence and could get the ball where it needed to go, they would take the field mouse to be their quarterback. So I find it funny that you're talking about that because I believe the exact same thing. But again, we could get off on a tangent on that, and I don't want to do that. But I think it's a great point that you brought up. They don't count that as a scholarship. Why not? Why do it? It's nonsense. But neither here nor there. I just think we got to get to a place to where we can't pigeonhole everybody. Look, I don't agree that the Power Four should be in charge, but I do agree that them putting pressure on the NCAA to make changes. That's the only thing that I want. And I believe that's probably fits the thing that they want. It's like, hey, you know what? We got some power here. We got some say here. We're going to put pressure on you to make change. And the NCAA seems they would just fight it. Well, all they would have to do is look what's happened with the NIL and the transfer portal. They put pressure on you and you folded. And the courts decided with them. So why not put things in place that actually make sense? Instead, the NCAA is just throwing its hands up and giving up. No, if we can't do it our way, just have at it, do whatever you want. We don't care. Versus actually just putting in parameters that actually make sense.
Right.
They would go along with that. They absolutely would go along with it. They want the NCAA to be the governing body, but you have to do it right. You have to do it based on what we want.
Yeah. Okay. Let me wrap up my thoughts of this and get back to the point. The Power Four in football, Power Five in basketball is actually called the Autonomous Four. Autonomous Four. That's their actual how they reference. I don't know where the power came from. It's just easier for monkeys like me to remember, and I appreciate that. But what the Power Four in football is fighting for? More autonomy. They want more power. They want to be. They just want to be the arbitrators, the deciders of their rules, of how they exist. And they don't want schools with no impact on them deciding their way of life.
Right.
And that's really what's going on. They just want, if we're going to vote, if these things are going to affect only our subset should be making these decisions. Let's change the structure of the NCAA. Let's streamline the NCAA. Let's make it work for the members instead of against the members, while still trying to enforce some type of rules / guardrails upon college athletics. Because we know if you don't have enough guardrails, people just cheat their ass off, SEC. And then when those rules change, all of a sudden it gets more competitive because cheating doesn't get you ahead. So that's what they need to look at. What are the realistic rules we can enforce that will level the playing field and not create opportunities for gross amounts of rules violations that we can't even wrap our enforcement policies around?
Right.
They're looking for reform, Big B. It's all they want. They want some changes, and everyone knows the NCAA isn't working. It's just not. This isn't working, guys. It's not us, it's you. And we got something to say. That's what the Power Four is thinking.
That's exactly what they're thinking. I think they're right. Wanting the legislation, wanting things put in place. But they want NCAA as a partner, but you got to make yourself readily available to be a partner that's going to do things that make sense. If you're not going to do anything that makes sense and you're going to continue down this path, well, sorry, we got to move on. And who knows, Fitz? Maybe they come up with their own entity and bring something else in and create something to be that partner. Wouldn't that be crazy if they said, it's not going to be the NCAA, it's going to be XYZ, and they're going to be the governing party because we're going to create this and have them do it to the liking of everybody, and that would be the death nail. I mean, definitely the death nail of the NCAA, because I believe that Division II, Division III, they would all say, you know what? That actually works for us too. We're going to move over to this, and then that would be the end of it. So be careful, NCAA, because I believe that's what's actually in the works. It's like, yeah, we don't want to govern it. We'll create something that can govern it, and then you'll be obsolete, and that'll be the end of it. So you either conform or be eliminated.
Yep.
It's tough, but that's the way things are these days, Fitz.
I love it. What I heard you say without saying it was, Fat Tony in Jersey, we're going to call you. We got stuff to discuss about running this thing.
Absolutely, man. Well, I appreciate everybody being in here as always. Thank you guys again. Look, I'm going to figure this snow thing out. Look, my blood's thinned out. I'm older.
Man,
I don't deal with snow the way I did before. It's Dallas. I get it. It's going to be gone in 6 hours, but it's here right now and I can't take it.
Dude, people can't drive in it. They have no experience with it. And the cities aren't equipped. We've got snow plows and, ice.
We have none of that.
Yeah,
McDonald's is closed down, for crying out loud.
Yeah,
McDonald's, Walmart, Whataburger, nothing is open. It is so silent. You walk outside, it is silent. Just nothing going on. So it's absolutely unbelievable. But I appreciate everybody being in here. Thank you, guys, and we will talk to you again soon. Aloha.
Thank you for watching the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. This has been a Spirit Street production.